Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming back. It's Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin. Happy to see you here. Great program for you if you like news, you like good video, you like good guests, and if you like to see me a little rattled. I'm a little rattled. I'll tell you why maybe halfway through the show. I could spend the whole program showing you clips of the president's trip in London, time with the king. I was on Michael Smerconish's show earlier today, and I challenged his producer, TC. What's the difference between pomp and circumstance? Raise your hand if you know. Do you know the difference between pomp and circumstance? As it turns out, they mean the exact same thing. So it's a little bit of redundancy. Repeated. It's like smashing and brilliant or good and plenty. Maybe that's not quite the same thing. Anyway, we could spend the whole show showing these clips. Now, to be honest, some of these clips look to me like a scene from Benny Hill. You could speed them up slightly and play the Benny Hill theme song. I'll show you what I mean. For those of you who don't know what Benny Hill is, will mean nothing to you, but play 23. Imagine it's slightly sped up with the Benny Hill theme playing under it. Play 23, please. Right? You see what I'm talking about. Anyway, you keep playing the video, just turn the audio down. There's scenes, I just wouldn't believe the scenes today. You see what I'm talking about. There's the banquet, there's carriages, there's stuff like this, and just the president's facial expressions throughout the day. Classic and night. I particularly enjoyed the president's face when the king went on and on about the environment and how he and the president and the American people and the British people shared a strong commitment to clean air and clean water. You know the face the president made then if you're a student of Donald Trump's faces. My point is, I could play these for you all night. We could fill the hour with stuff like this. And the president, again, all my sources said it, and no secret, I think he said it himself publicly, so honored to be the first president of the United States to get a second state visit. And he loves the king, and the king loves him, and toasts, first lady's dress, stunning. We'll show you that, I'm sure, at some point. My point is, this could be the whole show, but it's not, because the vice president of the United States did an interview with Jesse Waters that airs in full tonight on the Fox News channel, but many clips have been released, and if you like fiery and peppery J.D. Vance, that version of him, I could play those for you all night. Let's do one of those. There'll be more. Number one, please.
Local district attorney, you talk to the FBI director or the deputy director of the FBI. You look at every ounce of evidence that we have, and it is clear. This is a person who grew up in a pretty normal family, actually had a pretty good home life, who was radicalized by the far left, by the social networks of the far left, by the ideas of the far left, and got so far down the path of radicalization that he killed my friend. That is not a both sides problem. My friend is dead because of left-wing political radicalization, and if you want to cut that out, then be honest about it and look yourself in the mirror.
So again, you say, Mark, what a tough choice for you and your colleagues. You could play all of the J.D. Vance sound bites. You could play all the pomp and circumstance. That's a tough choice. Oh, no, my friends, there's more. Barack Obama did an on-camera interview today, I think with Steve Scully, formerly of C-SPAN, now of the POTUS on Sirius XM. And we could play you an hour's worth of Barack Obama. Not yet, but we're going to play you some of that. You'd say, okay, Mark, three-ring circus, very difficult. Split screen, 3 screens. Oh, no, there's more. The former head of the CDC was on Capitol Hill today, and she faced tough questioning from Republicans and or not tough, easy, some Republicans, easy questions from some other Republicans who tried to distract from the news at hand. I could play you a lot of that. Very interesting hearing. Okay, 4. No, you get where I'm going here. Kash Patel in front of the House committee today. Very spirited questions. Kash Patel yesterday took questions, spirited questions from former Congressman, now Senator, what's his name? Adam Schiff. Today, Swalwell. Can you imagine? Schiff on Monday, Swalwell, or Schiff on Tuesday, Swalwell on Wednesday. Could play some of that for you. Very interesting. Biggest news of the day might be that the Fed cut a quarter basis points, and that's getting a lot of attention. The markets were mixed on the news. First rate cut of the year. That's a big story. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. And then there's a few other things. But you see my point. It's a very big news day. We could talk for an hour about any of these things. And we've also got two great guests, and we've also got 6 hands up and counting. Because if you want to be in on the conversation and you're in the two-way platform, by all means, please raise your hand. Don't put smack in the chat, either here or on what do you call that thing? YouTube or X, but I know some of you will because you don't pay attention to what I say. But peace, love, and understanding throughout the hour. If nothing else occurs, I will be enforcing peace, love, and understanding, except apparently in the chat, where I'm powerless to stop some of you from violating the most basic rules of decency and of this program and of this platform, where we say, please extend the presumption of grace to all. Your anger knows no bounds. Your lack of civility is disgusting, but you'll do it anyway. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you about a little word from our sponsor, Cozy Earth. Then we're going to bring our great guests in. We're going to look at more of Mr. Pomp and Mr. Circumstance. We're going to play more of the J.D. Vance interview. We're going to listen to a long thing from Barack Obama. We'll hopefully talk a little bit about the Fed, and we'll get to what we can get to. We'll do our best. And then we'll take your questions. And if you want to be here, if you're here on the two-way platform, again, in on the conversation, all you need to do is raise your hand and then hold up a small animal or a cute baby, and you're likely to be called on. If you don't do that, frankly, you're taking your chances, because there'll be a lot of hands up tonight, as there has been for the last week. All right. This program brought to you by many people, including our good friends at Cozy Earth. And if you listen to me and my tale of comfortable clothes and bedding, you'll be rewarded with the opportunity to get 40% off. So many of you couldn't be happier. I've already bought the pants. I will say, so many of you are buying the pants, I get a little tired. The emails, the texts, they're roughly the same. Mark, you're such a great salesman. I bought the pants. My wife says they look great. They're so comfortable. 40% off. Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. I'm getting such a good night's sleep. The bedding's so comfortable. Cozy Earth, folks. There's a reason why I'm getting all these emails. The pants are great. I wore them all day. I went to a meeting. I went to a lunch. Couldn't be more comfortable. Couldn't be nicer. And then you've got the bedding, also very comfortable. The shirts, you can return the bedding at 100 days if you don't like it, but you will. All of these things available to you. Keep you cool on hot nights and comfortable always. 40% off. Go to CozyEarth.com. Put in the code TWOWAY for 40% off. Cozy Earth, built for real life, made to keep up with yours. Cozy Earth. Again, I recommend them to you. I hope that's clear. I have them. They're great. All right. Bring in our two guests. If somebody could do that while I introduce them. I love these two guests. I'm so grateful. I'll say again to my colleague, Lori, who's been booking up a storm for the last week, as she always does. Brian Wolff, a Democratic strategist and frequent guest here, and a man who only speaks truth and wisdom. And then Elizabeth Pipko, same thing, truth and wisdom. You two probably have other things in common. Elizabeth keeps kosher, Brian eats pig, but except for that, you're virtually identical. Thank you both for coming. Grateful to have you here. Folks, I'd love just your beginning thoughts on a week after Charlie was murdered, assassinated. I'd love how you feel. This may throw you a bit of a curveball. What's making you optimistic about America over the last week? What have you seen? Could be a small thing, a trend, a big thing. What have you seen that says, you know what, America's going to get through this? Elizabeth, thank you for being here, putting you on the spot. What's positive that you've seen?
No, thank you. And I think when you just introduced us, I think that was the first time I've laughed in a week. So thank you.
Doing my best.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I wish I had an answer for that, because what I've seen has been beautiful, but the negative stuff I've seen has also, maybe I was, naive to start out with, but the negative stuff I've seen has shocked me to a point that it, actually makes me feel like we might not recover from this and come out better on the other side.
Give me a positive thing. It could be a small conversation, a text you got. Just give me something that makes you say, you know what? People, we're going to get through this. Can you think of anything?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a bunch of people who didn't know much about Charlie, but know that I'm in this space, reached out to me and asked what they could do. And I told them to buy a tiny version of the Constitution and start reading it. And all of them did just that. So I think that's an important, good start. I myself am trying to learn more about our amazing country and do what I can to honor Charlie every single day.
Okay, that's beautiful. And Elizabeth, can you tell us about your personal connections to Charlie?
Yeah, I have known Charlie obviously since I started kind of in Republican politics. I think anyone in politics at all, but obviously on the right side, knew Charlie. Charlie was quite the force. It was impossible to avoid Charlie, and it was also impossible, I think, to realize just how kind of a person he was. I say it all the time. People in politics suck. People on both sides of the aisle, most of them really, really not the people you think that they are. Charlie was the person that he, portrayed himself to be. He was probably even better than that. He was one of the first people I reached out to when I wanted to get back into Republican politics. I was a nobody. I reached out to, I think, 22 people. I checked my email to remind myself after he was shot. He was the only person out of 22 that responded to me, offered me a job on the spot, and was one of the kindest, most inspiring people in the movement, in politics at all, that I've ever met. So I hope people realize they didn't just kill someone on the right. They didn't just kill an activist. They killed one of our best.
Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you for that. Brian, I'm going to ask you in the reverse order. Did you ever get to meet Charlie?
I did not get to meet him. I do believe that what Elizabeth said is true. That I think that he has served as a political vehicle, if you will. And I think that we should take every opportunity to, to get on that vehicle, and to be able to talk about what it really means to change the conversation and the overall this era of political violence that we're in. And so I agree with her that this is a person, whether you agreed with it or not, or anything that he said. I think it's a real opportunity for us to be able to rally around something. And remember, historically, there's always been inflection points, right? There's inflection points of what people lean towards and what might capture them. And so I would only say, let's pause for a minute and let's make it possible for people to just attach themselves to an inflection point of what, Charlie really represented, by the way, which is really about free speech. It was really about everybody is, they have a right to their own opinion. And Elizabeth did say that well. And, I think we just need to pause long enough to be able to say, we've had this conversation now for 4 days. And I think that there's a possibility. I like a little bit less, Mark, of the overall, big political players coming into this, whether they be former presidents or whatever. I like that less, actually, because I really want to think about what it really means for us to be able to step into this and really address political violence, and and who's feeding into that. And so I think there's a little bit of room for us to be able to grow from this. And I do agree with her in that he just has provided us with an opportunity here where will we take it? Will we take it?
Yeah, I haven't cried on camera yet today, although I might in a moment, but I have cried earlier, but not on camera. One of the things you said, Elizabeth, so important, and it's why so many people who knew Charlie are so angry about some of the reaction. Incredibly accomplished guy, 31, accomplished extraordinary things. Brilliant guy, politically shrewd, one of the most politically shrewd people I ever met. But it really gets under the skin of some of us when people don't understand that it wasn't just people's friend. He's one of the kindest people anybody who ever met him had ever met. So he's just an extremely kind man. And the way he's being characterized by people who didn't know him really upsets a lot of people. I will say that. All right. I'm just going to play a bunch of stuff for the two of you and for the audience. Again, raise your hand if you want the conversation. I'm just going to plow through some stuff here because I want to get through it, and then we'll talk about it a bit. And again, I want to get, as I have since Charlie was assassinated, I want to get to as many people in the community as possible for Elizabeth and Brian to respond to. So played a bit of J.D. Vance already. Here is J.D. Vance. This would be number 3, please, talking about people who are being fired for saying negative things about Charlie Kirk. Number 3, please.
People are celebrating Charlie's killing.
It's disgusting.
They're saying he deserved to die. How do you wrap your head around that?
I would ask you, if you were the kind of person who feels joy at the death of a grieving mother and grieving children, What bad decisions have led you to where you are today, and why don't you get back on the right path?
If these evil people don't repent and continue to revel in the murder, what should be the consequence?
Look, we have a First Amendment in this country. The First Amendment protects a lot of very ugly speech, but if you celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, you should not be protected from being fired for being a disgusting person.
Okay. Again, there's a lot from that interview to air in full later tonight. Here's Barack Obama at an event earlier today. He spoke yesterday at an event that I don't believe was on camera, but here he is. I want to play a fair amount of it for you so you can see where President Obama's coming out on all of this. This is President Obama talking about Charlie Kirk and extending the presumption of grace. Number 4, please.
Look, obviously I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I was generally aware of some of his ideas. I think those ideas were wrong. But that doesn't negate the fact that what happened was a tragedy and that I mourn for him and his family. He's a young man with 2 small children and a wife who obviously, and a huge number of friends and supporters who cared about him. And so we have to extend grace to people during their period of mourning and shock. We can also, at the same time, say that I disagree with the idea that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. That's not me politicizing the issue. It's making an observation about who are we as a country. I can say that I disagree with the suggestion that my wife or Justice Jackson does not have adequate brain processing power. I can say that I disagree that Martin Luther King was awful. I can disagree with some of the broader suggestions of that liberals and Democrats are promoting a conspiracy to displace whites and replace them by ushering in illegal immigrants. Those are all topics that we have to be able to discuss honestly and forthrightly, while we still insist that in that process of debate, we respect other people's right to say things that we profoundly disagree with. That's
okay. I have so many thoughts about that. Brian, I saw you shaking your head. First, tell me why you were shaking your head during parts of that.
Oh God. It's what I said before. It's, I worry about the voices that we sort of, if you will, Mark. I know that they're the voices that we want to be able to point to. You know what I'm saying? Because they're the voices that get attention. They're the voices with constituency, all of that. But it's like, at the same time, I'm like, wow, does it really play to everyone's, everyday Americans and what we're thinking in this moment?
Yeah. So I know that I don't need to look at the chat to know that some conservatives, some MAGA people will look at that and say they're troubled by 2 things: troubled by criticizing the other side and cheering. And Elizabeth, I guarantee you we'll see that on Sunday. I guarantee you we'll see on Sunday cheering at Charlie's memorial service in a football stadium. So what struck you about what President Obama said?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that clip, I'm actually genuinely surprised watching it. I'm like torn between this is what Barack Obama thought was the right thing to say, and this is what he wanted to say, because if he had said the decent thing, his own party would have criticized him. I mean, the cheering didn't start, by the way, when he condemned the shooting. The cheering started when he said, "But I disagree with Charlie Kirk."
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think, while the body is still cold and not buried yet, is an appropriate time for a former president of the United States to find everything he ever disagreed with from Charlie, most of which was taken out of context, by the way, and tell the world that he disagreed with it. He is the former president. Everybody knows where he stands. He's a very big deal. I don't think that's appropriate or necessary. And I just think it's more proof that absolutely nothing is going to change. Charlie Kirk did not say that Barack Obama's wife or Justice Jackson doesn't have brain cells or whatever he said. He did not say the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. I think this was so inappropriate and so unnecessary. And again, I am trying desperately to be careful of my words after what happened, because if God forbid it happened again to anyone, but let's say to someone on the left, I couldn't live with myself worrying that maybe I was 1% of the reason.
Yeah.
I don't know how these people are continuing what they're doing.
I'm struck that the president of the United States went on stage armed like an opposition researcher.
Exactly.
With some things that were kind of true, but as Elizabeth just suggested, some things that are not true.
Yeah.
I find it stunning that he was armed with that stuff and that they didn't say to him, Mr. President, if you want to point out some of the positions of Charlie Kirk that people in our party disagree with, let's stick with stuff in context and true rather than doing what he did. I'm really surprised, I have to say. I am surprised. All right. The investigation continues, and the New York Post is covering this aggressively. I'll show you a couple of headlines from the New York Post. Number 5, please. The New York Post says that the person who's sometimes described as Tyler Robinson's roommate, here, New York Post headline, Tyler Robinson admitted Charlie Kirk murdered in Texas exchange with boyfriend Lance Twiggs. Can his lover be charged with a crime? So that's something that people are speculating about. But here's another New York Post headline, number 6, please. There's a group called Armed Queers, and according to the New York Post, Armed Queers group's founder investigated in Charlie Kirk shooting as radical trans leftists who advocated violence. I don't know about that, but I want to show you guys 2 Polymarkets. Polymarket 2 questions connected to the investigation. So here's one, number 8, please. Question is, will there be new arrests in the case before the end of September? New arrests. And as you can see, it's moved up and down a little, but only 14% say there'll be new arrests by the end of the month. Brian, 14%, I'm sorry, said that wrong. Our partners at Polymarket result is 14% chance that there'll be new arrests by the end of the month. 14% chance. Brian, do you think that's, to your sensibility, high, low, or about right? 14% chance there'll be more arrests?
No, I think it's very low. I think we know. I think this administration, law enforcement, I think they've done a great job with being able to expose exactly how it happened, where it happened, when it happened, and who it happened with. And I really don't think that that's worthy of going forward. I think the real sad story going forward is going to be, how these families are impacted by this. And, this is clearly, I think it's very clear what happened here. And
Yeah.
I think the public has rallied around that with what's happened here too.
Yeah. Elizabeth, on a Polymarket, one other thing, it's similar result. Again, Polymarket, our partners, they take bets from all over on sports and politics, weather, everything, but doing a lot of Polymarkets on this case. Question is, the second one is, was Robinson a lone actor? Polymarket, was Robinson a lone actor? Go ahead and put that up. Elizabeth, 87% chance, according to the bettors, that he was a lone actor. Does that number surprise you in any way?
No, not really. I mean, it also depends what they mean by lone actor, because I'm sure there's going to be so many conspiracies that continue from this, and he was in this chat group or that one, or he was inspired by this one. So I don't know. I don't want to be someone that fuels the flames of any of this, because I've seen a lot of people say some really crazy things and try to, get clicks off of this. I don't know. I agree with Brian. I think we kind of know what happened here. I'm hoping if there's arrests that need to be made, they are made, but I'm pretty sure we're all pretty confident in, unfortunately, what happened here.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to speed through some news because because I want to get to your questions for our great guests. So let me just tell you a few other things. As I said, the former CDC director who was fired, Director Monterez, testified. Democrats praised her as a truth teller. Some of them said they were sorry they voted against her confirmation because they thought she was great. Republicans criticized her for hiring two lawyers who are pretty notoriously anti-Trump. Mentioned before, Kash Patel, contentious hearing on the House today. Here's the Fed chair, Chairman Powell, number 17, testifying, or press conference, talking about why, for the first time this year, the Fed cut rates quarter basis point. Number 17, please.
In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate. With downside risks to employment having increased, the balance of risks has shifted. Accordingly, we judged it appropriate at this meeting to take another step toward a more neutral policy stance. With today's decision, we remain well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
Okay, people expect more rate cuts. The markets were kind of mixed. Here's our stock report from our sponsors at the Bahnsen Group. Markets close, number 20, please. Dow was up, but S&P and NASDAQ down. A little confusing, and it's going to be confusing. Even though, again, more rate cuts expected, people thought the markets would do better. If you want to understand the markets, we recommend our friend David Bahnsen writes his daily newsletter. And I'm sure David's going to continue to write about what all this means. If you want to subscribe, it's free. It comes out every day. David writes it. It's got good jokes in it, but also great economic analysis. Go to tway.tv/TBG, the Bahnsen Group, and there you'll see a little box. You can click on that and subscribe to David's daily newsletter. Dividend Cafe, I recommend it to you. Again, the Bahnsen Group, David writes it. He gives it away. It's very good. His business is finance, does personal wealth management, but you can read his newsletter for free. It doesn't cost you a thing. All right, a few more things. We'll get to your questions. I mentioned the pictures from the state visit, the king and queen hosting the president and the first lady and their delegation. I could play you 100 things. Here's a picture from the state dinner, number 25. Big long table. And as I said, the king did a toast. There you see the big long table. Incredible scenes. Do we have a picture of the first lady? I think we do somewhere in her dress. It's an incredible dress. Do we have that?
Yeah, we do.
We do. All right,
scroll
let's
through the pictures.
Scroll through the pictures. You got to see. There's the princess, and everybody praying. There you see the first lady. It's not a close up, but you see that yellow dress.
There's a close up.
Close up coming up. All right, I want you to see it for you fashion mavens. If you're looking for something glamorous and exciting in this time of sadness, there's the president, the first lady, the king and the queen. Fantastic dress. And here's the toast, or at least part of the toast, number 26, that the king proposed. Take a look. 26, please.
Well, as we celebrate this unparalleled partnership, allow me to propose a toast to President Trump and the First Lady, and to the health, prosperity, and happiness of the people of the United States of America.
I mean, I could watch it 100 times. Elizabeth, you a fan of the TV show The Crown?
I am not. I am the most patriotic person you'll ever meet, and I don't want to know anything that happened before 1776.
All right. It's a great show. Thoughts on the visuals there and the whole trip so far, Elizabeth and Brian?
I mean, it looks great. I don't know. I actually, right before we started, I got off of BBC, where I was obviously screamed at for being a fascist and a Nazi for 30 minutes. But look, I thought it looked really good. Like I told them, I think the speech from the king was really, really good. I don't understand why people want to make it a negative thing. I love that they're showing some respect to Donald Trump finally, after the way they've talked about him for many, many years. And I think at a time like this, when the world is upside down and our own country is upside down, this was a beautiful thing to see.
Are they really mean to you on the BBC?
They're not nice. Yes, they're very. I think if I was in person, they would have spit on me. Yeah.
All right, that's not. I don't like hearing that. I'll have to speak with them. I have to speak with them.
Please
Brian, what do you think about the circumstance and pomp?
Well, two things. I would really like err on the side of what Elizabeth said, because I really think that it was it was a monumental moment for this government, for the second time to be, hosted by the UK. And I think that within itself, I don't know how many times that's been done, by the way. So I don't know how to bring that factoid into this, but
no president's ever had two state visits.
Okay. But so I think that's worthy of, that's worthy of a lot of respect. I will say they did manage to protect and a lot of the narrative that was coming out of the UK, simply that they really, shut down Windsor, and they made sure that there was no public displays of, and there was a huge amount of strikes and things that people were standing up and but that's to be expected. But yeah. I think that was a little bit looked over. It still managed to take place. So that's something to think about. The people of that country, in a large demonstration like that, was huge. But it is what it is, right? I mean, I think that they were welcomed there, and they were, and it was historical in nature, by just what you said, Mark.
Yeah, a beautiful thing. I love seeing it. I like circumstance. All right, we're going to take your questions. We got to end a little bit early tonight because I got to go do Laura Ingraham. So we're going to end a little early. So we want to get to your questions early. So in a moment, I'll ask you if you're here on the two-way platform, if you want to be in the conversation with Elizabeth and with Brian, please raise your hand, and we'll get to as many of you as we can. Believe it or not, we're just printing money here, Elizabeth and Brian. We just have so many sponsors. One more sponsor, and we're grateful to all our sponsors, because that's what keeps us being able to do these programs for you. Last sponsor. If you're gaining weight, or if you've gained weight, the worst thing you can do is lose a lot and then gain it all back. It has all sorts of negative effects on your body. And so consider Take Lean, takelean.com. Again, another opportunity for a discount, this time 20% with the code two-way, takelean.com. Fad diets are a bad idea. Doctors will tell you, don't do weight cycling. Do something that will allow you to keep the weight off. Most people need help. You can get one of those injectables. I don't recommend that, by the way. I've not done it, but I know a lot of people have. So don't use a GLP-1. Use what Lean does for you. All natural, helps you maintain healthy body sugar, controls appetite and cravings, and it converts fat to energy. So if you want to have meaningful weight loss, consistent, steady, try it this way. Go to takelean.com, put in the code two-way, get 20% off. Many, many people have tried it. It works for them. If you need to lose some weight, this is a healthy way to do it. Give it a try. All right. Time for your questions. If you want in the conversation, please raise your hand. Come on in. Remember, peace, love, and understanding. If you're British, don't be mean to Elizabeth. I don't know why you go on channels that are mean to you. No one be mean. Be nice. Here we go. Michael Mitchell. Man, did your parents really name you? Is that really what your name is?
Mitchell. Yes.
Mitchell. All right. My eyes are bad. Mitchell, welcome in. I love the name Mitchell. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Elizabeth and Brian.
I'm in Southern Arizona, and I wanted to highlight something that happened today that has a potential to legitimately, over time, bring the temperature of conversation down. And that is the Oversight Committee today has put out a request for the CEOs of several of the tech companies, Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit, to come testify in front of the Oversight Committee, which if people do their research correctly and let some of their Zoomers that they employ actually bring up the correct information to that hearing, has the potential to really call to the carpet some of the bad actors that are on these platforms. Like just one that has made a lot of noise on X recently, Hassan Piker from Twitch, who has 3 million followers. There's a supercut of his going around explicitly calling for violence against conservatives and endorsing terrorism and all kinds of other stuff. And that's 3 million people that follow him. So I'm sure there will be plenty of examples on both sides of the political spectrum that people can bring to that hearing. But I'm hopeful that they will, in fact, bring good information to that hearing and put some of these CEOs' feet to the fire.
So I'll go first, then Brian, who's worked at Capitol Hill extensively, and then Elizabeth. I'll say this. First of all, I'm not familiar with the comments you're referencing, so I want to look into it before I comment on the specific charges you made against that gentleman, although I know he says a lot of excitable things. I will be sad at that hearing because having members of Congress do their typical grandstanding and yelling and beating them up will produce nothing. I've said it many times. The lobbyists for these tech companies are underpaid because they are geniuses and they run circles around members of Congress, and they'll come in there and they'll scream and yell and say, "How dare you, my kids?" They'll read off their note cards. They shouldn't even have the hearing because nothing good will come of the hearing. They should hire the smartest, experienced former tech people they can, pay them whatever the Treasury has, and come up with a real plan to try to do some good, because these tech companies are not interested in being regulated, even though they claim they are. Brian, if you were back on Capitol Hill, what would you tell members to do at that hearing?
Well, Mitchell, I think it's a good point. I really do think it's a good point and relevant. But I do think it kind of is this process of equalization that is just going to equalize everything out with regards to what the left or what the right, is going to be able to protect. That's exactly who's going to come forward, right? We know that, they're just going to be able to defend each other through this process. And but I do agree with you that it's worth bringing up in a different venue, right? It's worth bringing up at a different level. And I think you're right in pointing this out because we've not really had accountability on the social media level as far as what this looks like. And so I would agree with you that I think there's some there, but I worry at the end of the day, is the noise just going to be canceled out by each other, just because that's who we are. That's the political sort of way that we sort of annihilate things, both in the courts and in Washington. So I'll be interested to see it, but I think you have a point that we've not done anything like this before, as far as, really held people accountable on, the First Amendment. And this is really what Charlie was about, was really about stepping forward and stepping into. You may not have agreed with anything he said, but he actually, he actually was very impactful in what he was doing. And, and he actually knew how to be able to communicate that. And as Elizabeth and I know, that it's kind of like in our business, the ability to be able to effectually communicate something is so valuable. It's so valuable to be able to move an issue from point A to point B. So I agree with you. I would love to see this at the end of the day be a different conversation, but we'll see.
Elizabeth, do you think anything positive could come if Congress thinks they're going to regulate big tech?
No, and I hate that all three of us just piled on and said nothing's going to happen, because that's
Yeah.
how cynical you become if you work in politics. No, I don't think anything's going to happen, but I do appreciate Brian's point. You never, like, technically, you never know what could come of it. If nothing else, it's being shown in a different light, in a different avenue. And even though these companies don't want to be regulated, if enough people see the nonsense that's going on up there, maybe at least at minimum, they'll keep their kids off of these platforms.
Yeah. Mitchell, thank you. Grateful to you. I want to bring up one other story that I heard about later today, but forgot to bring in. Jimmy Kimmel on the show 2 nights ago said that Charlie was killed by a, quote, MAGA gang. And it stirred up a little bit of controversy, maybe a lot. The head of the FCC mentioned it. Nexstar station group, a big company, media company, owns 32 ABC affiliates. They say they're going to preempt Jimmy Kimmel for the time being. Elizabeth, a lot of free speech issues, a lot of examples we could bring up. There's no evidence for what Jimmy Kimmel said being true. Should he be punished in some way for saying something not true?
I mean, look, he should be punished if he's losing ratings, losing, anything for the networks that are paying him. Again, free speech absolutist. I kind of am along the lines of what Charlie always was. I think everyone should say whatever they want. I just wish more people in our country decided that they were going to take matters into their own hands and say, if people continue to spread lies or speak in this way, we're not going to give them the time of day, watch their show, give them money. That's all. He's free to say whatever he wants. I think more people should have stopped listening to Jimmy Kimmel a long time ago.
Brian, would you call yourself a free speech absolutist as well?
Pretty close. I'm like, I really think I stopped short in this sort of era of political violence that we're in. I do think when it kind of crosses over, Mark, into the call to action, that to me is different. But I absolutely want to lean into free speech. But if you're calling people to action, then there should be some accountability there.
Yeah. There's another news story that's being talked about now, understandably. 3 police officers are killed, 2 others shot in Pennsylvania today. And there's press conferences. The governor's on top of that as well. And I'm sure we'll talk about that tomorrow on the morning meeting. I don't know much about the circumstances, but I know that that's getting a lot of coverage, understandably so. All right, bring more folks in. Again, as always, raise your hand if you want to be in on the conversation. Raise your hand, and if you come in, unmute, tell us where you are, what's on your mind. Turner, thank you for joining.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank you, sir.
So I'm calling from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I am really struggling with this whole left and right thing. I saw Michael Moynihan having a great conversation with Megyn Kelly on her program the other night. And he was saying basically, you look at someone like the people outside of Luigi Mangioni's trial, and they were like actively cheering on the fact that they were wanting him to get away with it. Yeah. And it's a scary thought that he was like, you don't see the right en masse going out there and like cheering on violence. And I have a friend, I'm a nurse, and I have a friend that I worked with that I heard from another person when he was talking about Charlie Kirk, he said, I'm glad he died. He was a white supremacist. Like, there's common people out here that actually think this way.
Turner, I'm not going to equate things because I don't do that here. You say no one on the right has ever cheered on violence? Is that
no? Because I think the Don Jr. stuff is like bad. Like, I don't think that should ever happen. The January 6th stuff is bad.
Yeah.
But someone dying and then acting like that's okay is just crazy.
Yeah. Do you think the president should have pardoned the people convicted around January 6th?
I didn't like that, but
yeah.
I
so
understood it.
Do you see how people on the left, when they hear things like what you said, do you see why it upsets them? And again, I'm not equating things. I don't equate. But do you see why people on the left would say a point of view that suggests the right never cheers for violence?
And I'm not saying they never cheer for violence.
Okay, I thought you did. I may have misheard you.
No, I'm saying that there's a greater amount of en masse people that cheer for violence, and I'm using the Luigi Mangione thing as evidence, in my opinion.
Right. Do you think it matters? Do you think there's a difference if the cheerers are random people who are not famous or elected officials? Do you think that matters? In other words, do you think Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer Hakeem Jeffries should be responsible for anyone of the left who writes something on social media?
So I don't think it's right, but I don't look to other people to set my example. What scares me more is the idea that there are people that could look at me, because I hold very similar views to Charlie Kirk in a lot of ways. And for them to think that's okay, it seems like that could come and I could catch that.
Yeah. Yeah.
by
Elizabeth, question for Turner, if you'd like.
I don't know. I don't really have a question. I would just say I share your viewpoints. I would say I've obviously seen inappropriate things be said on the right. Like, I'm not going to deny that at all. I've heard it with my own, I've seen it, I've heard it with my own eyes and ears. At the same time, I would say there's this strange culture on the left right now that's being pushed, where this kind of like push for violence being justified is happening. I think it's happened when you see a lot of these like pro-Palestine or pro-Hamas in some case protesters where they're screaming globalize the Intifada. You've seen it when you hear professors talk about how Charlie Kirk was assassinated and deserved it. It's strange when it comes from normal people. I think that's what it is. And I've seen a lot of crazy people on the right say a lot of crazy things, and we very often try, at least most of us, to disavow it. I think the problem is there's a lot of people on the left, especially recently so, that are normal, decent people who over the last few years have just decided that violence against those you disagree with is okay. Violence against those that you don't believe should speak on your college campus is okay. Violence against those who believe that Israel deserves to exist is okay. It's a very strange thing that's kind of taken over what I would consider a part of the Democratic Party that a few years ago was very, very normal. And I don't want to criticize one side and not the other. There are problems on both sides. But I do think there is a culture that's taken over the far left that is becoming a little too mainstream for my life.
Brian, comment or question?
I would just say I agree with you up until a point. I'm just really worried that we're not taking accountability, because I would take accountability for my own party, and you should take accountability for your own party. We are, by the way, whether it's to the far left or to the far right of what we're doing here, it is what I worry about is like, is there no way that we can get back to the center of something to be able to say, like, what can we do about this that instills and injects this political violence in our country? And I don't think it's like having the president of this country, by the way, who has the bully pulpit, who has the ability to step forward, to be able to bring, I have more from a governor, in the state of Utah trying to bring the temperature down than I do the president of this country. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Thank you for that, Brian. Thank you. Turner, thank you. A couple things I need to say. Turner, great to have you here. First of all, just announced Jimmy Kimmel is now being suspended. ABC preempting the show indefinitely for what he said, which is interesting. I'll try this again. I don't read the chat, but I glance at it, and I get emails and texts all day. I didn't say anything two things were equivalent. You people, listen to what Elizabeth said. There's problems on both sides. Doesn't mean they're equivalent of problems on both sides. And the left and the media canceling people for 2 decades. Now all of a sudden they're saying, how dare anybody recommend someone lose their job? Things are not equivalent. They're not equivalent. And if you're a student of my work, I've been saying this for years. The left has engaged in conduct that explains Donald Trump's victory. You people who think Donald Trump is the worst person of all time, you need an explanation of how he won 2 out of 3 presidential races. A man who'd never run for public office, a man who's said and done a lot of controversial things, a man who was a liberal Democrat, gave money to liberal Democrats for his whole career, all of a sudden is elected in 2016, reelected in 2024. After being indicted in 4 separate cases after January 6th, you have to ask yourself, how did that man get elected? Now, Elizabeth will tell you he's charming. He's got brilliant ideas, great politician. But he got elected largely, based on my reporting in 48 states on this, he got elected largely because of the extraordinary excesses and far left policies of the Democrats. Okay? That's mainly why he got elected. And so, believe me, I have credibility on this point. Stop telling me you're not going to watch the show again because I'm saying the 2 sides are equal. Stop telling me this is no time to bring up the problems on the right. Stop. It's factually wrong, and you're not contributing to solving the problem. If what you want to contribute to is listen to people you agree with tell you lies, find somewhere else to spend your evenings. Because I'm interested in the truth and trying to solve these problems helping solve these problems for America. I won't do it on my own, but I am astonished at how people smart enough to find this platform, smart enough to be interested in smart people like Elizabeth and Brian, how dumb you are to keep mischaracterizing virtually every night what I say. Takes a lot of stupidity to do that. So watch something else if you don't want to hear the truth about what's happened in America. Not saying equal. I've said that maybe 6 times tonight. They're not equal. They're very different. The trajectories, the histories, the policies, the offenses, the grievances of the two parties, there's some similarities, but they're really different. They're not equal. And I'd even tell you which I think is worse. I think you can tell based on my body of work. But both sides have done things. Both sides. All right, Jimmy Kimmel, show is paused. I'm really interested to find out why my former boss Bob Iger has done this. I don't know. I don't know the tone. Does anybody know? Noah, Lori, what was the tone in which Jimmy Kimmel said this thing? Anybody know? Was it meant to be a joke?
Well, it was like he usually does. It was funny, but very sharp-edged.
Yeah,
very
we don't have the clip of him saying.
I'm getting it ready. It should be ready in like a minute.
All right, hope it'll be ready soon because we got to end a little early tonight. And I want to hear it. And so let's close this way. It's Wednesday. The service is on Sunday. Elizabeth, if you could give a word of advice to your friend and former boss, the president, about what he should say on Sunday, what would you suggest would be a good thing, a good theme of his message on Sunday?
I don't know. I've noticed a lot of people are, affected by the shooting in different ways. Obviously, if you knew Charlie, if you were friendly with him or very close with him, like the president was, I can't tell you how to feel. I can't tell anyone how to feel when they watch their friend get murdered in this way. I've told people a bunch over the last week. I personally have struggled with the death penalty. I think it's inhumane. I don't think it's the government's choice to put people down. Yet, I am thrilled that in America, we do it in the most humane way possible. I don't believe anyone deserves to be put to death in that way. The fact that it happened to someone good, someone who I knew, is incredible. I can't sleep at night still.
Yeah.
So I can't blame anyone for how they're feeling or how they react. At the same time, like Brian said, that's the president. He has a responsibility as the president of the United States. I just hope more than anything he says what Charlie would have wanted him to say, which is find your Bible, read that Constitution, go find the neighbor who voted differently from you and talk to them, or we will never get through this.
Yeah. All right. Here's the Jimmy Kimmel clip. I want to make sure everybody hears it before we go. So please play that.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the 4th stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
Was the soundbite in there?
Yes, it was the MAGA gang part at the beginning.
Okay, I missed it. I was reading something. In any event, it's a big deal that he's suspended. We'll talk more about it. Elizabeth and Brian, I need to get some advice in front of the audience here. Should I apologize for saying some of the people watching the show is stupid? Would it be right for me to apologize? No, Brian. What do you think?
Look, I think that we are all in a heightened state of, this place that we're in. And I hope that the president, and I'm going to say this because you didn't ask me to say it, but I just hope that the president uses the event of Charlie Kirk's, funeral and that service. I think there's a real opportunity he has. Will he take it? Will he take that opportunity to step forward and to be able to bring some unity, bring down the political violence, bring down a lot of the partisan, talk? It would be completely off center for what people expect.
All right, we shall see. Elizabeth, your advice notwithstanding, I went a little too far. I apologize. I'm just still very emotional about all this, and I'm doing my best to navigate 10 hours of live shows a week. And I'm just so frustrated that people are more interested in being tribal than they are in trying to help solve the problem. But I apologize. I shouldn't have said that. And I'll likely do better if I can get some rest. Grateful to you, Brian and Elizabeth. Love having you both on and love having you on together, and grateful to you. And I hope I was nicer than the BBC. That's my aspiration. So thank you both for being on. All right.
You.
In just a moment, you'll be able to watch two things at 7 o'clock Eastern. You'll be able to watch me on Laura Ingraham on the Fox News Channel, and you'll be able to watch my friend and colleague, Bridget Fedesi, here on the Two-Way platform. Her program tonight will be about grief, dealing with tragedy. Bridget's a genius. So please watch Bridget right 5 minutes, and I'll be on with Laura, as I said. And then tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time, Dan Sean and I will be back. And we'll have full coverage of everything that's happening, which is a lot. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the shooting in Pennsylvania. I'm sure we'll talk about Jimmy Kimmel. And we'll probably talk about how much I love the two-way community, because I do. Thank you all very much. Again, thanks to Brian and Elizabeth. Thanks to all who asked questions. I will see you in a few minutes, and then I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Have a good night.